The stars looked different out here in the Centauri system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Phoenix, watching the distant suns through the main view screen. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he kept holding the mug. Anyway, it was a habit from his days fighting in the Martian wars. "Captain, we have an unknown contact approaching," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her position at the sensor station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. In 3 years of deep space patrol, they had never seen anything that wasn't human-made. Jake set down his mug and walked over to Amy's station. The sensor display showed a ship unlike anything in their databases. It was sleek and smooth, almost like it had been grown rather than built. No sharp edges, no obvious weapons, and it moved through space with a grace that made the Phoenix look clumsy. "Distance?" Jake asked. 200,000 kilometers and closing slowly, Amy replied. "They're not trying to hide. In fact, they're broadcasting some kind of signal." "What kind of signal?" "Unknown. It's not directed at us specifically. More like they're announcing themselves to anyone who might be listening." Jake nodded. This was exactly the situation they had trained for, but nobody really believed it would happen. First contact with an alien species, the moment that would change everything for humanity. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "But keep weapons powered down. I want us ready, but I don't want to look aggressive." The bridge lights dimmed to red, and Jake heard the alert klaxons echoing through the ship. In seconds, every crew member would be at their battle stations. It was probably unnecessary, but Jake had learned long ago that being prepared was better than being sorry. The alien ship continued its approach. It was bigger than the Phoenix, but not by much, maybe twice the size. What struck Jake most was how peaceful it looked. There were no visible weapon ports, no armor plating, no signs that this was a warship at all. "Sir, I'm getting more detailed readings now," Amy said. "The ship appears to be scanning us." "Scanning us how?" "Unknown energy patterns, very sophisticated. They're being thorough but not invasive. It's almost like they're being polite about it." Jake considered his options. Earth Command had clear protocols for first contact, but those protocols assumed a lot of things that might not be true. They assumed aliens would communicate in ways humans could understand. They assumed aliens would have similar technology. They assumed aliens would want to talk. Let them scan, Jake decided. If they wanted to hurt us, they probably would have done it already. "Amy, can you get me a channel to that ship?" "Working on it, sir. Their communication systems are unlike anything we've seen, but I think I can establish a basic connection." While Amy worked on communications, Jake watched the alien ship on the main screen. It had stopped moving and was just sitting there in space, apparently content to study the Phoenix from a distance. The scanning energy was so subtle that their sensors barely detected it. The bridge door opened and Chief Engineer Ryan Blake walked in. Ryan was a big man with hands that were always slightly dirty from working on the ship's systems. He looked worried. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from our computer systems," Ryan said. "Nothing harmful, but something is definitely poking around in our networks." "The alien scan?" "Has to be. But here's the thing. They're not trying to break in. It's more like they're knocking politely and waiting for permission. Very different from anything we'd do." Jake found that interesting. Human scanning technology was designed to get information quickly and quietly, whether the target wanted to share or not. Military thinking. But these aliens seem to have a different approach. "Let me know if anything changes," Jake told Ryan, "and make sure our important systems are isolated." "Already done, sir. I've got backups running on isolated networks, and our main weapon systems are completely cut off from anything they might access." That was Ryan Blake, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Jake was grateful to have him. "Captain, I'm reading multiple life signs on the alien vessel," Amy reported. "At least 50 individuals, maybe more. Their biology is definitely not human, but I can't get more specific details." "Any signs of weapons?" "None that I can detect. But that doesn't mean much. Their technology is so advanced that they might have weapons we can't recognize." Jake nodded. The scanning continued for several more minutes. The alien ship just sat there, studying them with the patience of scientists examining a new species of insect. It was both fascinating and slightly insulting. Finally, the scanning stopped. The energy patterns faded away, and the alien ship remained motionless. Jake waited for something to happen. A message, a movement, anything. "Sir, I'm detecting increased activity on their ship," Amy said. "Lots of internal communications. I think they're discussing what they found. Can you understand any of it?" Not a word. But the tone sounds surprised, maybe concerned. Jake frowned. What could they have found that would surprise them? The Phoenix was a standard Earth battle cruiser, well-armed and well-defended, but nothing revolutionary. Unless alien technology was so advanced that human weapons looked primitive to them, or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe human weapons looked too advanced. "Captain, I'm getting a communication attempt from the alien vessel," Amy announced. "Very basic, just mathematical sequences and simple images." "Put it on screen." The view screen flickered and then showed a series of simple shapes, circles, squares, triangles, basic mathematical concepts, prime numbers, the universal language that scientists had always hoped would work for first contact. "They're trying to establish that they're intelligent," Jake said. "Standard first contact protocol. Send back the same sequence but add the next logical step." Amy's fingers flew over her controls. Within seconds, they had sent their response. The alien ship replied immediately with more complex mathematics, then simple pictures: a star, a planet, a ship. "They're showing us that they understand we're travelers like them," Amy translated. "Spacefaring. Intelligent. Good. That's good." Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. This was going exactly like the textbook said it should. Peaceful contact between intelligent species. But something nagged at him. The way Amy had described their reaction to the scan results. Surprised? Concerned? What had they seen that worried them? Jake had a feeling he was about to find out. Commander Vexhai stood in the center of the Nexus Prime's scanning chamber, his blue-scaled hands clasped behind his back. The chamber was a work of art, with flowing curves and soft lighting that seemed to pulse with the ship's heartbeat. Everything about Zephyrian technology was designed to be peaceful and beautiful. "Begin the deep scan," Vexhai ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had made first contact with 17 different species. Chief Scanner Operator Kyle Thera nodded and activated the bio-neural scanning array. The chamber filled, with a soft humming sound as quantum energy reached across space toward the human vessel. This was routine for them. They had done this same scan dozens of times with dozens of species. "Initial penetration successful," Kyle Thera reported. "The human vessel's defensive systems are not interfering with our scan. They appear to be allowing it." Vexhai found that encouraging. Most intelligent species either welcomed scans or tried to block them. Very few became hostile immediately. These humans seemed to be following the standard pattern of peaceful first contact. "What can you tell me about their technology level?" Vexhai asked. Kilthara's fingers danced over the bio-neural interface, her scales shifting color as she processed the incoming data. "Interesting. Their technology is more advanced than expected for a species we've never encountered. Fusion power, quantum computers, energy weapons. But the design philosophy is very different from ours." "How so?" "Everything has backups, and the backups have backups. I've never seen so many redundant systems on a single vessel. It's like they expect everything to break down in the middle of a fight." Vexhai tilted his head, a gesture of confusion. "Among his people. Perhaps they come from a dangerous region of space. Many species develop excessive defensive measures when they face constant natural disasters." The scan continued deeper into the human ship. Kelthara began accessing their computer networks, which was usually the best way to understand a new species. Their databases would contain their history, their culture, their values. "Commander, I'm detecting something unusual," Kyle Thera said. "The humans appear to engage in recreational combat." "What do you mean?" "I'm observing 2 crew members fighting each other while others watch. But there's no anger or hostility. They seem to be enjoying it." Vexhai moved closer to Kyle Thera's station. On the display, he could see two humans in a large room, wearing protective gear and striking each other with their fists. Other humans stood around them, making loud noises that the translator identified as encouragement. "Are you certain this is recreational?" Vexhai asked. "Yes, Commander. I'm reading their brain patterns. Both fighters are experiencing pleasure and excitement, not fear or rage. And when one falls down, the other helps him up. They even touch hands afterward in what appears to be a gesture of respect." This was disturbing. In all their encounters with other species, the Zephyrians had never found one that enjoyed violence, even mock violence. Fighting was something you did when you had no choice, not something you did for fun. "Continue the scan," Vexhai ordered. "I want to understand these humans better." Kilthara nodded and extended the scan into the ship's databases. What she found there made her scales turn pale blue, a sign of shock among her people. "Commander, you need to see this." The main display filled with images from human history. Battles, wars, weapons of incredible destructive power, cities reduced to ash, millions of dead. And through it all, humans continued to fight, to build better weapons, to find new ways to destroy each other. "How old is this data?" Vexhai asked, hoping it was ancient history. "Some of it is thousands of years old, but much of it is recent. Commander, these humans have been at war almost continuously for their entire recorded history. Not just defensive wars. They fight over territory, resources, ideas, and sometimes for reasons I cannot understand at all." Vexhai stared at the display in horror. Image after image of human warfare scrolled past. Soldiers charging across battlefields, flying machines dropping explosives on cities, massive metal vehicles rolling across landscapes, leaving destruction in their wake. "Look at this," Kilthara said, highlighting a section of the data. "They split the atom and immediately used it to build bombs that could destroy entire cities. They invented flight and turned it into aerial warfare. They developed computers and used them to guide missiles. Surely they must have peaceful periods." Vexhai said, "Yes, but even during peace they prepare for war. They build weapons when no enemy threatens them. They train their young in combat. They turn everything into a potential weapon." The scan revealed more disturbing details. Humans had spread to multiple worlds in just a few centuries, something that had taken the Zephyrians millennia to accomplish. But where the Zephyrians had spread slowly and carefully, making sure each world was ready for them, humans had simply conquered their environment and adapted to it. "They live on worlds that would kill most species," Kilthara reported. "Extreme temperatures, high radiation, toxic atmospheres. And they don't just survive, they thrive. They change themselves to fit the environment instead of changing the environment to fit them." Vexhai felt a chill run through his scales. His people were peaceful explorers who had built their civilization on cooperation and harmony. They had assumed that any species advanced enough for space travel would have similar values. But these humans were different. They were warriors who had conquered their own world before reaching for the stars. "Commander, there's more," Kilthara said. "I'm accessing their military databases now. These humans have detailed plans for fighting enemies they've never met. They have strategies for space warfare, ground combat, even fighting on worlds with different atmospheres and gravity. It's like they assume everyone in the universe wants to kill them. Show me their current military status." The display changed to show Earth's defenses. Massive space stations orbited the planet, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets, missile defense systems that could stop attacks from any direction, underground bunkers that could keep the population alive even if the surface was destroyed. "They've turned their entire home system into a fortress," Kilthara whispered. "And this ship, the one we're scanning, is just a small part of their military forces." Vexhai realized they had made a terrible mistake. This wasn't a simple first contact with a peaceful species. They had encountered something far more dangerous than anything in their records. A species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. "How much of our technology have they been able to access during this scan?" Vexhai asked. "Very little. Their computer systems are surprisingly well defended. But Commander, I don't think that matters." "Why?" "Because I think they're scanning us back." Vexhai's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "There are subtle intrusions in our computer networks. Nothing aggressive, but someone is definitely poking around. I think when we scanned them, we accidentally gave them access to our systems. The peaceful first contact that Vexhai had expected was turning into a nightmare. They had revealed themselves to a species of warriors, and now those warriors were learning about Zephyrian technology. "Commander," Kylthera said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I recommend we withdraw immediately." But even as she spoke, they both knew it might already be too late. Dr. Helen Brooks sat in her laboratory aboard the USS Phoenix, completely unaware that alien eyes were watching her work. She was studying theoretical first contact protocols, trying to understand how humans might communicate with species that had evolved under completely different conditions. Her research files contained detailed analyses of human behavior, psychology, and social structures. The Zephyrian scan had penetrated deep into the ship's computer networks, and Kylthera was now accessing Helen's files. What she found there made her scales turn even paler. "Commander, you must see this," Kylthera called to Vexhai. "I've found detailed studies of human behavior patterns." Vexhai approached her station, dreading what new horror he might discover. The display showed Helen's research on human adaptation and survival instincts. According to these files, humans can adapt to almost any environment within a single generation, Kylthera explained. They've survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and plagues that would have wiped out most species, and each time they faced extinction, they came back stronger. The files showed case studies of human colonies on hostile worlds, humans living in underground cities on planets with poisonous atmospheres, humans building floating cities on worlds covered in acid rain, humans creating sealed habitats in the vacuum of space itself. "Look at this section," Kylthera highlighted another part of Helen's research. "Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They actively seek out dangerous situations. They call it exploration and adventure, but it's essentially recreational, risk-taking." The scan had accessed records of human explorers deliberately traveling to the most dangerous places they could find, climbing mountains that could kill them, diving to ocean depths that would crush their bodies, flying into storms that could tear their aircraft apart, and they did it not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "This is insane," Vexhai muttered. "What kind of species seeks out danger for entertainment?" "A species that evolved in constant danger," Kylthera replied. "Commander, I've been analyzing their homeworld. Earth is far more hostile than we initially thought. It has massive predators, deadly diseases, extreme weather, and natural disasters that occur regularly. Humans didn't just survive on that world. They became the top predator." The scan revealed more details about Earth's ecosystem. Humans had competed with creatures that were stronger, faster, and better armed than they were. But humans had something else: intelligence, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to give up. They had hunted creatures 10 times their size to extinction. They had tamed animals that could kill them with a single bite. They had turned the entire planet into their territory. "And now they're in space," Vexhai said quietly. "Yes, and they're treating space the same way they treated their homeworld, as something to be conquered." Kylthera accessed more files from the Phoenix's database. Military records showed human conflicts that spanned entire star systems. Economic data revealed how quickly humans could strip resources from a planet and move on to the next one. Population records showed how fast they could reproduce and spread to new worlds. "Commander, they've been in space for less than 300 years, and they've already established colonies on dozens of worlds. At this rate, they'll fill half the galaxy within a few thousand years." Vexhai felt sick. The Zephyrian Empire had taken 50,000 years to establish their current territory, and they had done it carefully, making sure each world was ready for them and that they weren't displacing any native species. But humans seemed to approach expansion like a military campaign. "There's something else," Kylthera said. "I've found their contingency plans." "Contingency plans for what?" "Everything. They have detailed plans for fighting wars in zero gravity, plans for defending colonies from alien attack, plans for evacuating entire planets if necessary. They even have plans for fighting wars that last for centuries." The display showed military documents that chilled Vexhai to his core. Humans had thought through every possible scenario and prepared for conflicts that might never happen. They had strategies for fighting enemies with superior technology, tactics for guerrilla warfare on alien worlds, methods for building weapons, from common materials if their supply lines were cut. This species doesn't just prepare for war, Vexhai realized. They assume war is inevitable. And they're probably right, Kyle said. Commander, look at their analysis of potential alien threats. The scan had accessed classified military intelligence files that analyzed possible alien species based on theoretical models. Human strategists had imagined dozens of different types of alien civilizations and developed detailed plans for fighting each one. They had considered everything from hive minds to energy beings to machine intelligences. They have a plan for fighting us, Kyle whispered. On the display was a section labeled Advanced Scanning Species, Defensive Protocols. It described exactly what the Zephyrians were doing right now and outlined 17 different ways to counter such a scan. How could they know? Vexhai asked. They didn't know. They just imagined every possible threat and prepared for it. Look at the date on this file. It was written before they ever left their home system. Vexhai stared at the human defensive protocols. They were brilliant, vicious, and absolutely ruthless. The humans had anticipated that someone might try to scan their ships, and they had prepared countermeasures that would turn the scan into a weapon against the scanner. Commander, I'm detecting unusual activity in our computer networks, Kyle reported. The humans are definitely scanning us back, and they're being much more aggressive about it than we were. Can you stop them? I'm trying, but their intrusion methods are unlike anything we've encountered. They're not trying to be polite or gentle. They're treating our computer systems like enemy territory to be conquered. Alarms began sounding throughout the Nexus Prime. Engineering reported that their navigation systems were experiencing random failures. Weapon systems were cycling through activation sequences without orders. Life support was still functioning, but environmental controls were fluctuating. They're not just scanning us, Vexhai realized. They're attacking us. Not attacking, Kyle corrected. Defending. This is their response to our scan. They're treating our information gathering as an act of aggression. Vexhai understood now why humans had survived and spread so quickly through space. They didn't wait to be attacked. They didn't try to understand their enemy's motivations. When faced with a potential threat, they struck first and asked questions later. Commander, we need to withdraw immediately, Kilthera urged. Our systems are being compromised, and the human intrusion is spreading faster than we can contain it. But Vexhai knew it was too late. The humans now knew exactly where the Nexus Prime was, and they had detailed scans of Zephyrian technology. Even if they withdrew now, the damage was done. Prepare for emergency jump, Vexhai ordered. Get us away from that ship. Sir, navigation is compromised. The human virus has infected our jump drive. Vexhai closed his eyes. They were trapped in space with a species that treated first contact as a military operation. The peaceful exploration mission had become a nightmare, and he had no idea how to escape it. Chief Security Officer Carl Murphy had been waiting for this moment his entire career. Not first contact with aliens. That was exciting, but not unexpected. What he had been waiting for was the chance to test his security protocols against a real threat. Murphy was the kind of man who assumed everyone was trying to break into his systems. He had designed the Phoenix's computer networks with that assumption in mind. Every intrusion attempt, no matter how polite or gentle, would trigger automatic defensive measures. He called his masterpiece Pandora's Box, and it had been sleeping in the ship's systems for 3 years, waiting for someone to wake it up. The alien scan had been polite, careful, and respectful. It had also been the biggest mistake the Zephyrians had ever made. Captain, we've got activity in the computer core, Murphy reported to Jake Morrison over the comm system. Someone's been poking around in our networks, and Pandora's Box just went active. Jake was still on the bridge, watching the alien ship through the main view screen. Is that good or bad, Carl? Depends on your point of view, sir. Good for us, very bad for whoever was doing the scanning. Murphy sat in his security center, watching as his creation came to life. Pandora's Box wasn't just a defensive program. It was an aggressive counter-intrusion system that had been designed by someone who had studied every form of electronic warfare humans had ever developed. The virus spread through the scanning beam like a plague, following the quantum connection back to its source. Within seconds, it had infiltrated the alien computer networks and begun its work. But unlike the gentle alien scan, Pandora's box had no interest in being polite. "Talk to me, Carl." Jake's voice came through the comm. "What exactly is your virus doing over there?" "Everything I designed it to do, sir. First, it's mapping their entire computer network. Then it's copying their databases. Then it's taking control of their critical systems. After that, it gets creative." Murphy watched his screens with professional satisfaction. The alien ship's computer networks were sophisticated, but completely unprepared for the kind of aggressive intrusion that humans had perfected. Their security systems were designed to keep out unauthorized users, not to fight off a virus that had been created by a species that turned everything into a weapon. "Sir, I'm getting some interesting intelligence. Here," Murphy reported. "These aliens are called Zephyrians, and they're part of something called the Zephyrian Empire. They've made contact with 17 other species, and they've never encountered anything like us." The virus was transmitting everything it found back to the Phoenix. Murphy's screens filled with alien star charts, showing the locations of dozens of worlds and space stations, technical specifications for Zephyrian ships and weapons, population data, economic information. Everything the aliens knew, Pandora's box was stealing. "Carl, are you recording all this?" Jake asked. "Every bit, sir. I'm also transmitting copies back to Earth Command through our quantum communicator. Fleet Intelligence is going to love this." But Murphy's virus wasn't content with just stealing information. It had been designed to disable enemy systems, and that's exactly what it was doing. On his screens, Murphy could see the alien ship's systems failing one by one. Their navigation computer was cycling through random coordinates. Their weapon systems were powering up and down without commands. Their life support was still working, but environmental controls were fluctuating wildly. Most importantly, their faster-than-light drive was completely offline. "Sir, the alien ship is dead in the water," Murphy reported. "They can't run, they can't fight, and they can't call for help. Pandora's box has taken complete control of their critical systems." On the bridge, Jake watched the alien ship through the view screen. It was still there, but he could see lights flickering on its hull as systems failed and restarted. The elegant vessel that had approached them so confidently was now helpless. "Amy, are you picking up any communications from that ship?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Amy Carter nodded grimly. "Yes, sir, and our translation protocols are working now that we have access to their computer systems. They're in full panic mode over there. Their commander is ordering his crew to sever all connections and retreat, but it's too late." "What are they saying about us?" "They're calling us a warrior species and a galactic threat. Their commander seems to think we deliberately lured them into a trap." Jake almost felt sorry for the aliens. They had approached the Phoenix with peaceful intentions, following what was probably their standard first contact protocol. They had no way of knowing that humans had spent centuries developing ways to turn every interaction into a potential battle. "Sir, I'm detecting weapons charging on the alien vessel," Amy reported. "But the weapon systems are malfunctioning. They're not able to target us properly." "That's Pandora's box," Murphy explained. "I programmed it to recognize weapon systems and disable them first. Those aliens can fire their weapons, but they'll probably end up shooting at empty space." Jake made a decision. "Carl, can your virus transmit a message through their communication systems?" "Absolutely, sir. I can make their ship say anything we want." "Good. Send them this message. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Phoenix. Your scanning attempt triggered our automatic defense systems. We mean you no harm, but you are now under our protection. Please respond if you wish to discuss terms for peaceful resolution." Murphy typed commands into his console, and seconds later the message was transmitted through the alien ship's own communication array. The irony wasn't lost on him. They were using the aliens' own equipment to talk to them. "Sir, we're getting a response," Amy reported. "It's from their commander. He says his name is Vexhai, and he's requesting immediate cessation of our cyber attack. Tell him we'll consider it." Jake replied. But first we want to talk. Murphy continued monitoring his virus as it spread through the alien systems. Pandora's box was designed to be thorough, and it was finding things that even Murphy hadn't expected. The Zephyrians had detailed files on 17 other alien species, complete with military assessments and contact protocols. "Captain, you need to see this," Murphy called. "The aliens have been keeping score on every species they've met. They rate each one for technological level, military threat, and something called integration potential." "What's our rating?" Murphy checked his screens. "We don't have one yet, sir. But based on their internal communications, I'd say we just broke their rating system." The virus had also discovered something that made Murphy's blood run cold. The Zephyrians weren't just explorers. They were scouts for a much larger empire. Every species they contacted was eventually visited by Zephyrian colonization fleets. Peaceful species were invited to join the empire. Aggressive species were contained or eliminated. "Sir, I think these aliens were deciding whether to invite us to join their empire or whether to call in their military to deal with us. And now? Now they're probably wondering if they need to evacuate this entire sector of space." Jake looked at the crippled alien ship on his view screen. First contact was supposed to be a moment of wonder and discovery. Instead, it had become a demonstration of human paranoia and aggressive defensive measures. He wasn't sure whether to be proud or ashamed. "Keep monitoring their systems, Carl," Jake ordered, "and keep copying their files. We're going to need every piece of information we can get about this empire of theirs." Because Jake had a feeling that this was just the beginning. Commander Vexhai stood in the center of his ship's bridge, watching his crew struggle with systems that no longer obeyed their commands. The elegant control surfaces that had responded to thought and touch for decades now flickered with error, messages in languages that hurt to look at. "Engineering report," Vexhai ordered, his voice tight with controlled panic. Engineering Chief Zarhak looked up from his console, his scales a sickly yellow color that indicated extreme stress. "Commander, the human malware has infected every major system. Navigation is cycling through random coordinates. Weapons are firing at imaginary targets. Our jump drive thinks we're already in hyperspace and won't engage. Can you purge the virus?" "I've tried everything, sir. This malware is unlike anything in our database. It adapts faster than we can counter it. Every time I isolate one part of it, 3 more sections appear in different systems." Vexhai closed his eyes. In 50 years of space travel, he had never felt so helpless. The Nexus Prime was one of the most advanced ships in the Zephyrian fleet, equipped with technology that could analyze and counter almost any threat. But the humans had created something that seemed designed specifically to destroy civilized computer systems. "Sir, the human vessel is hailing us again," Communications Officer Reltan reported. "Same message as before. They're offering to help us if we agree to peaceful discussions." "Help us?" Vexhai's scales shifted to an angry red. "They're the ones who did this to us." "Actually, sir," Kyle Thera said quietly, "I think this was automatic. The humans didn't deliberately attack us. Their ship was programmed to respond to any scanning attempt as if it were an act of war." Vexhai stared at her. "You mean this was their default response?" "Yes, sir. I've been analyzing the virus code. It's not targeted specifically at us. It's designed to counter any form of electronic intrusion, no matter who's doing it or why. The implications of that were terrifying. Most species develop defensive measures to protect against known threats, but humans had created defenses against threats that didn't even exist yet. They had imagined every possible form of attack and prepared countermeasures for all of them. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the human ship," Reltan announced. "This one is different." The main display flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human vessel. Vexhai got his first clear look at the creatures that had destroyed his ship without firing a single shot. The human commander was smaller than Vexhai had expected, but there was something in his eyes that made the Zephyrian scales crawl. It was the look of a predator, calm, alert, and completely confident in his ability to handle any threat. "Commander Vexhai," the human said, "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. I apologize for the aggressive response of our systems, but you triggered protocols that were designed to protect us from hostile scanning attempts." "Hostile?" Vexhai found his voice. Our scan was completely peaceful. I understand that now, Jake replied. But our ship's computer didn't know that. It detected an unauthorized intrusion and responded accordingly. However, I'm prepared to resolve this situation peacefully if you're willing to talk. Vexhai looked around his bridge at the chaos the human virus had caused. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Warning lights flashed in patterns that hurt his eyes. His crew worked frantically to restore basic functions while the malware continued to spread through their systems. What do you want? Vexhai asked. First, I want to make sure you understand that we're not your enemies, Jake said. We're explorers just like you. We came out here to learn about the galaxy, not to fight anyone. You have a strange way of showing it. We're a cautious species, Jake admitted. We've learned that it's better to be prepared for trouble than to be surprised by it. Vexhai almost laughed. Cautious was an understatement. These humans had turned paranoia into an art form. Second, Jake continued, I want to offer you a deal. My chief engineer can help your crew repair the damage our virus caused. In exchange, I'd like to learn more about your people and your empire. You've already learned everything about us, Vexhai said bitterly. Your virus copied our entire database. Yes, and we've transmitted that information to our government. But I'd rather hear about your people from you directly. Data files can tell me what you've done, but they can't tell me who you are. Vexhai considered his options. He could refuse the human offer and try to repair his ship without help, but that could take weeks or months. His crew was already showing signs of stress from the malfunctioning life support systems. Or he could accept help from the species that had crippled his ship in the first place. If I agree to this, Vexhai said, what guarantee do I have that you won't simply destroy us once we're no longer useful? Jake's expression became serious. You have my word as a captain and as a representative of humanity. We don't kill people who aren't trying to kill us. And if we were trying to kill you, then we'd kill you first, Jake replied without hesitation. But you're not, so we won't. The casual way the human discussed violence made Vexhai's scales crawl. But there was also an odd sort of comfort in the directness. At least he knew where he stood. Very well, Vexhai said. I accept your offer. Excellent. I'm sending over an engineering team now. They'll help you get your systems back online. The transmission ended, and Vexhai slumped in his command chair. In the space of a few hours, he had gone from confident explorer to prisoner of a species he didn't understand. Commander, Zarhak called from his engineering station. Sensors show a human shuttle approaching our docking bay. Let them aboard, Vexhai ordered. But maintain a security watch. I want to know everything these humans do while they're on our ship. The human engineering team was led by a large man who introduced himself as Ryan Blake. He moved through the Nexus Prime's corridors with the confidence of someone who understood technology, even alien technology. His team spread out through the ship, carrying devices that Vexhai didn't recognize. Your virus is definitely thorough, Ryan told Vexhai as they walked through the engineering section. It's gotten into systems I didn't even know existed, but the good news is that it's not trying to destroy anything permanently. It's more like a very aggressive security program. Can you remove it? Sure, but it'll take some time. The virus is designed to hide in isolated system fragments and reactivate if it detects another intrusion attempt. We'll need to hunt down every piece of it. Ryan's team worked with an efficiency that impressed even Zarhak. They understood the virus because they understood the minds that had created it. Within hours, they had restored basic navigation and communication systems. There, Ryan said, wiping his hands on a cloth. Your ship is functional again. The virus is still there, but it's dormant. As long as you don't try to scan any more human vessels, it should stay that way. Vexhai felt his ship's systems come back online. The familiar hum of properly functioning equipment was music to his ears. But he also knew that this was just the beginning. Captain Morrison wants to meet with you in person, Ryan said. He's invited you aboard the Phoenix for dinner. He says it's a human tradition when meeting new friends. Vexhai looked at the human engineer. Are we friends now? Ryan smiled, an expression that showed entirely too many teeth. Let's just say you're not enemies anymore. Whether we become friends depends on what happens next. as Vexai prepared to visit the human ship, he wondered what he was going to tell the Zephyrian High Command. How do you explain that you've encountered a species that treats first contact as a military operation? How do you describe creatures that can cripple your ship without firing a shot, then invite you to dinner? One thing was certain. The galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. And somehow Vexai suspected that the humans were going to make it even more interesting.